Saddle up, cowboys, because we're thrift flipping. Why did I say cowboy? Whatever. Let's go. Alright, this outfit is giving us really gnarly Grandma Gertrude vibes, and although I am a grandma, self-proclaimed because I like crafts, I am not this type of grandma, and I do like style. No offense to those type of grandmas though, y'all have a special place in my heart. Anyways, we're gonna need to change that. I actually got this piece at an estate sale. So that's how you know somebody probably died in it. I got it for around $3 to $5. As you can see, it has a really long kind of mid skirt and a button down top, and the whole thing is just kind of outdated. From Beatrice to beautiful. From old lady to slightly less old lady. From outdated to upgraded. From ancient to entertainment. From prehistoric to your pick. From my aching hip to fully equipped. But first, please join me in my chair of contemplation while I eat these grapes really lavishly and just disregard that purple thing hanging on my wall. I'm going to sketch out a couple designs for what I want. I knew that I wanted a t-shirt and shorts out of it. Something like appropriate for the weather, kind of. I mean, it is Colorado, so you can't like predict. But yeah, and I ended up sketching out a couple designs, really wonky. I'm not the best drawer, but I got this. I'm going to go with this top right one. It's a V-neck type of flowy shirt and a pair of shorts with a belt kind of tie thingy. So yeah, we can make that work. All right, time to get popping on the shirt. The first thing I do is take out the shoulder pads because I'm already like so buff, I don't even need them. And then I take off all the buttons. And then I drape it on my dress form and pin it all in place, and I'm drawing out where I want the new neckline to be. So I draw out this general V shape because I want to get rid of that whole collar part. And so I'm just trying to make sure that it's even on both sides. After that, I marked where I wanted this shirt cropped to. And while doing that, I found this hole in the side of the seam of the bodice. So I just decided to zip that up really quick and get on with the rest of the shirt. The next thing I do is cut out the neckline to where I previously marked it and trying to make it even on both sides, just yeeting off that whole collar piece. And then I try to clean up the front of both of these sides of the shirt because there was extra fabric there where the buttons went. So pretty much I just hacked it all off. And then I pressed the new neckline in with my iron about 1/2 inch to make a hem, and also so it's easier to sew. I then head over to my sewing machine, used an overlock stitch on the raw edge, and hemmed it all in place by using a straight stitch. This is what it will look like when it's done. As you can see, I have a really nice 1/2 inch hem around the whole neckline. The next step is to put the shirt back together by sewing down the front of the shirt where the buttons used to be. So here I am just pinning those right sides together and go ahead and sewing down that line in the middle. And after I sewed that down, I realized that I had these 2 flaps from the seam and I wanted to sew those down. They ended up being the perfect length as the hemline on the collar, so that when I sew them down, they were all the same width more or less, and it would look like one cohesive seam or piece. So here I am back at my sewing machine, sewing right down the edges of that flap from the seam allowance, and it turned out pretty good. Next thing I do is decide to hem the bottom by ironing it up 1/2 inch, and I decided to take the sleeves up 1 more cuff, so I did the same to the sleeves, and then I sewed all those hems together, or not together, but you know, I sewed them all down, and this is what we'll end up with the shirt. After I decided I wanted to have some darts because it was kind of flowing out too much for my liking in the stomach area, so I decided to add 2 1-inch darts in the front and 2 in the back. I did this just by pinching the fabric together and folding it over itself. And once I repeated that process 4 times, I pinned those in place and sewed them together along the hemline that I previously sewed, and also sewed a top stitch down the fold of the dart so that it would just lay nice on the rest of the shirt. That's what it looked like. As you can see, it takes kind of an L shape, but it also blends in. And here's the completed shirt. This was great because I didn't have to touch the sleeves, and sleeves are kind of a if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a completed shirt and I'm really excited. We interrupt this broadcasting to present to you a moderately entertaining video. Look at the baby flower. The last dandelion. Oh my god! It's okay, I realized that more flowers will grow, and Ray is just so darn cute anyways. But now it's time for me to work on the bottoms. I started by cutting the skirt into a big square so that it's easier to work with by cutting off the waist and cutting along the side seam. And then I grabbed a pattern out of my arsenal of sewing supplies. I made this pattern a while back just for a pair of flowy shorts. What you need to do is cut out 2 fronts and 2 backs. So here I am working along the fabric, making sure that they're all the same direction or same grain on the fabric. And I cut out my 4 pieces. It was kind of a stretch, like always. I barely fit the pattern somehow, but I ended up finessing it and ended up with a really good pair of well-fitting shorts. So I was really happy with how that turned out. And then I grabbed one of the back pieces of the shorts and one of the front pieces of the shorts and pinned along the long edge, which is actually the leg side, not like the crotch side. So I did that for both pieces and then put both those pieces right sides together as well, matched the curves up, and then pinned and sewed along both sides of those curves. I also overlocked the raw edges on all the seams, just a little FYI. And next step is to sew the crotch, the undercarriage part, between the legs part, just by sewing along the smaller part of the pattern piece right sides together. And once you're done with that, you actually have a shell of a pair of shorts. It's not like completed, but you can definitely see how it takes shape. Now I'm just cleaning up the edges on the leg holes and the waist so that it's really nice and even. Then I decided to make a waistband by ironing the top down about an inch just to fit a channel of elastic in. I'm going to sew this to keep in mind the channel of elastic that has to fit through there. So what we need to do is keep that in mind when we're having that spatial awareness and leave a gap to actually feed the elastic through. So I just measured that baby around my waist and fed that boy because he was hungry. Wow, that was a bad one. And then I joined the 2 pieces of elastic together using the stitch in the box method. Yeah, there's me mouthing it. Really proud of myself for that one for some reason. And then I just finish up that hole we left by top stitching it down. Then I start by making a piece to use for the belt loops. I want them to be around 1/2 inch thick, so I make the piece about 1 inch long because it'll fold in half, you know. And then I make a really long rectangle for the tie/belt situation. I want this about 1 inch-ish thick. So I'm just making it however long my spare fabric will allow me. And I also pressed those in to make it easier to sew. I sewed along the raw edge and I cut these dangles on the edge of the tie belt so it would look nice and clean. And when I sewed, I made sure to leave a hole in the middle so that I could flip both sides of the belt out and push out the edges so it looks nice and clean. And then once I was done flipping that whole thing out, all I did was mend the hole by just folding it in and top stitching over that. So after I was done with that, I had 2 completed pieces of accessory parts. I don't know what else to call them. So I ironed them down, and then I took the smaller piece, cut it into 5 3-inch sections to use as belt loops. I overlocked the edges of that, and then I marked out where I wanted the belt loops to sit on my shorts, keeping in mind the scrunching of the fabric for the waistband at the top, because you don't want it to be like too cray on one side, you know? I then took the belt loop and folded it so that the raw edge was underneath the top of the belt loop, pinned it in place, and sewed the top and the bottom of them down to the shorts. After all 5 was done, I shimmied the belt through the loops, the tie belt, and it turned out looking pretty good. Then I decided to hem the bottom by ironing up the leg holes and sewing along that edge so I have a 1/2-inch seam. And after we have a completed pair of shorts, by golly almighty, they turned out pretty good, and they're really well fitting. I love the tie accessory because you could adjust the tightness, and yes, I'm really excited about these. At this point, my extra jean was on high overload. Well, who am I kidding? It always is. So I decided to make a matching hair tie out of it by cutting a rectangle, sewing it down on right sides together, leaving a hole, flipping it outside, tying elastic to my wrist, feeding that elastic through the hole, tying it together, and then fixing the hole on the scrunchie, and then I made a loop frilly thingy by the same method of my belt, and then we have a 3-piece set, well, technically 4, because we have a matching little hair accessory also. So here's all the whole completed outfit. This is what I mean by fully equipped. We have a 4-piece outfit, like everything you would ever need for a spring day, frolicking in the meadow, you know, hid in the town, whatever you want to do in this, wrestling a bear, calling your in-laws, fighting off the coronavirus, going to vote at your local polls, making a TikTok, pulling an all-nighter, having a midlife crisis. You know, you could do anything with this outfit, and you could be extra if you want to be. So, without further ado, let's show you the final look and final montage.
You ready to shuffle? She did.
Oh! Claws, right?
Oh wow, you brought up this.
Yeah, I'm telling the grandma vibes because this thing used to be grandma, and it's slightly less grandma now.
Never seen a grandma do the sprinkler.
What about splits? I'm just kidding. Oh god, okay.